table. If you want to participate, we need you to get you around one of these tables, and please, if there's room, put another chair in your table here because we got a good turnout tonight. And please note what's on the screen up here. If you want to participate, get your phone out, follow the instructions. If you have some difficulty with that, we have some competent people, not me, but other competent people who can help you set that up. Now please do that because we're going to be doing a survey and it's going to be good to have everybody participate. Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's not stuff like the council chamber we do. Yeah.
You guys got an invitation? This is really most of my if I can find you. City manager?
Yes, and you have to leave it until we have the survey. So we're going to put this over. I'm Covina, City. Tonight we're going to feature a workshop. We have a survey that's done electronically. So we're going to be getting the information and put via text everywhere. So if you don't have a cell phone, don't worry. But if you do need help logging into the poll, you do need to send a text to the number 22333, and you send, I can help you through it, and it's really easy. All you do is just send a letter to what selection you want, and hit send, and it'll send us.
All right, can everybody hear me pretty well?
Yes?
Good evening. We still have some empty chairs. There's a couple over here if you want to come forward, or they have a table without a map. We want to make sure we give an opportunity for everyone to participate. This is a great turnout. We had a presentation last week, and so we have a little bit larger turnout tonight, so this is wonderful. A lot of new faces. See some folks that were here, or not here, but were at Shadow Oak last week when we had the presentations. I want to first introduce myself. My name is Chris Freeland. I'm your city manager. So I want to say welcome to the BKK workshop. If you're here for the senior lunch program, you're a little early. You have to come back tomorrow. But you know, the program here gets really good food. Before I get started, there's some folks here I want to introduce you to, and then some housekeeping items as well. So first and foremost, let me introduce our members of our city council here this evening. Our Mayor Pro Tem Tony Wu. Council member Jessica Shoemaker. And by a show of hands, those are members of our city commissions, or committees, like our audit committee. I'm not going to introduce everybody, but thank you all for participating. And I'm going to try and speak on some of the certain topics about the BKK landfill, answer questions. A lot of the presentation is going to be done with Jeff Anderson, who's our community development director in the back. You're met Jeff, if you haven't already. He's going to help walk us through kind of what we call a charrette, or an opportunity for you at your table to discuss some concepts and ideas that you like. Karen Coe with our Economic Development Department, she's helping with the survey that you're going to be doing. And then lastly, where'd Paulina go? Paulina Morales. She's over there helping people with the survey. So, is there anybody still having problems that wants to sign on to the survey on their phone? Still having any difficulties or need help? If you just raise your hand, don't be embarrassed. Like Jeff said, many of us don't know how to do it. Paulina's going around to help show folks if they wish to do so. Yes, we have those as well circulating too. And if you have your phone, the results go up immediately, which is kind of cool. So we're trying to introduce the 21st century here in West Covina. And those who still wish to use the forum, we'll make sure we tabulate that information as well. What's important also to note is we plan to get this information out to the community on the city's website, encourage folks to submit answers through our website in the future as well. So first and foremost, who here is not familiar with the fact that we have a former landfill here in West Covina called the BKK landfill? Everybody has a little basic knowledge of that, right? And so many of you probably lived here for many years, or when you moved here, you learned about the BKK landfill. So what we like to do is we're going to actually create a workshop to talk about, some of the concepts or ideas of what could potentially be developed up there in the future, okay? Or nothing can be developed. That's going to be a decision that the city council wants to hear feedback on from the residents to help them with the decision-making process. Now, I know there's been other presentations going on in the community, and I want to say this hopefully will be completely different to you, unless you were here, or excuse me, at Shadow Oak last week. And that is, we're trying to get input from the residents on potential development. So this is a little bit different than some of the presentations that have been out in the community that have been talking about some of the history of the site. We're going to give you a little bit of history, a little bit of knowledge, answer some questions related to landfill, and then we'll move on to potential opportunities for projects up there. Tonight is an agendized city council meeting. We're required by law to agendize city council meetings if 3 or more council members are here. We have agendized it, but we only have 2 council members in attendance, so therefore it will not be an official city council meeting. So if anyone asks that question, why was it agendized? We do that in case there's more than 3 city council members by state law, so that way they can hear your input. I want to make sure you understand the other 3 council members wish to be here this evening, but they're actually at a training done by the state of California through the League of California Cities for new council members and mayors. And so, unfortunately, the timing conflicted with the presentations tonight, but they were present at the last meeting. All right, so now let's get into the meat of the subject. So why are we here tonight? First and foremost, we're here to talk about the BKK landfill, educate you where and how we've gotten here, but also to talk to you about some misconceptions that have been out there about the project. So if we can, where we at for the introduction? There we go. So we can do an overview of the site first, as it comes up. So if you're not familiar, that is what the BKK landfill looks up from outer space. All right? You got a Zeus and Amar intersection right over here. Bigley Drains, which is the baseball fields there. And then hundreds of acres of landfill. Most people, when they dump their trash, it's called municipal waste. That is this area here, which is called Class 3 landfill. Many of you know BKK landfill was open for many years, closed down in the 90s. And so for the last really 20 years, there really hasn't been a whole lot done out there, all right, that you've seen. But there are a lot of things that we'll tell you about that have been going on out there. On this area here, not everybody knows, that happened to be one of the largest toxic waste landfills in the United States at one time. All right, so a lot of people didn't know that. So there's a lot of, as we go through any kind of process or development, the city is very concerned about making sure that that, in perpetuity, is safe for our community. All right? So when you think about that, there are several environmental agencies that are involved in the oversight of the landfill. We call it the BKK landfill because that used to be the former owners, the BKK Corporation. The BKK Corporation has gone into bankruptcy. Okay, so even though they're in bankruptcy, they do have some assets and money coming in that helps pay for the ongoing maintenance of what's called the post-closure maintenance of what's called the Class 3 of the municipal waste landfill. All right, so that makes sure that, hey, the gases and what's called leachate, which I'll describe in a couple seconds, are maintained and protected, and that the overall protection of the community is okay. On that portion of the landfill, there's a state agency called Cal Recycle. They are responsible for the maintenance, or excuse me, not the maintenance, but the observing of the post-closure of that landfill, make sure that all these things to maintain the safety of the landfill for the community are ongoing. As you can imagine, with a toxic waste landfill in town, there's a lot of concern about that, so we have everything from regional water boards have concern about that, as well as the parent agency over it, which is the California Department of Toxics and Substance Control. All right. If you were at our last city council meeting, representatives from DTSC came and gave an overview of the condition of the landfill. At this time, they are doing a full study of the site to provide for future enhancements for the ongoing maintenance and monitoring of the landfill. Here's where I'll talk a little bit about what they're doing out there, what they've been doing. When trash decomposes, if anybody's into science or anything like that, it creates gases and liquids. All right, so as things decompose, kind of like you would see at your own home when you have decomposing leaves or that or other items, it creates those gases and liquids. The gases and the liquids are actually monitored and taken out of the landfill through a series of what I call straws. If you've heard me say that before, it's all these little wells throughout the site and all this plastic piping. So if you drive by there, you see a lot of piping all around the landfill. And that is because it's sucking out the gases and the liquid that's coming out of the decomposing garbage. The gases are collected, and there's actually a power plant here on site. So they take that methane gas and they generate electricity there, which is sold to the Edison grid, all right, or to use for the site itself. The other substances are what's called leachate, or liquid. That is water that's and contaminants that are collected and actually treated on site, and then at the end of the day or during the time, is they actually use that water that's been treated to do for irrigation on the site. Okay. Right now, they're doing a study of those environmental agencies to figure out, long term, they want to redesign that collection system to make sure that it's providing the best quality of service, most efficient way to collect those gases and liquids. All right, so those environmental agencies are doing a design and a study right now, which should be done here in the next year or two on that project. That project will also include them trying to figure out what they want to do long term with those liquids in the future as well. Landfills, as they start to age, they're not decomposing as much, so there's not as much methane being collected, but they still want to monitor it to make sure that there's no hazards to the community. All right? So I want to make sure everybody understands. The reason we're here talking about potential development is only because the city, working with the environmental agencies, believes that the developments that we may or may not do in the future are safe to the community. No development will be able to move forward without approvals of the various environmental agencies that are overseeing the landfill. And I think last count there's like 6 or 7 of those agencies that have some sort of involvement, including US EPA, that many people don't realize we're overseeing this site. All right, so that's a little history if you didn't know it already, or what's been going on up there in the last several years. Yes, sir?
Who's paying for all the treatment that you're doing?
Good question. So, on the area what's called the toxic waste landfill, anybody who has deposited liquids in there or any kind of contaminated waste, they're actually what's called potential responsible parties. And these are big name corporations like aerospace industries, oil industries, banks who own interest in the property. They're the ones that are on the hook for what's any kind of deposit of items in here. There's actually a registrar of hundreds of companies, even cities, the state of California, like Caltrans, all those folks that dump anything in here are financially responsible for a portion. On this end, again, it goes back to the BKK Corporation. And I said, even though they're in bankruptcy, they do have some monies that are being generated from either from the generation of electricity here on the site, or they had what's called insurance premiums that were in place for when the landfill closed to provide maintenance. Okay? If at any time they're unable to fulfill those requirements or there's a shortfall, the state agency stepped in, specifically Cal Recycle. All right, so they're the ones that are helping fund the bill at this time. Yes, sir. So the BKK Corporation still owns all of, I shouldn't say all of the land. They own the footprints of the landfills in the areas here to the south. All right, so even the toxic waste landfill, they still actually own the property, but the liability for what's in there, since they don't have the financial ability to take care of it, is on those people who dumped their materials into the landfill.
The one on the right, are they still dumping things in there?
No, so there's no dumping occurring at the landfill anymore. Yes, that stopped several years, or many years ago. All right, so if we go to the next slide, this is an area of land that was acquired by the city's former redevelopment agency back in the early 2000s. Okay, it was a part of an overall acquisition of land, which included all the Heights Shopping Center area and the Big League Dreams area. The intent was, at that time, was to build the Heights Shopping Center, which was completed, then also do the Big League Dreams complex, and then the long-term design was to build a golf course up here. Okay? I don't know how many of you think that there's still going to be a golf course built up there, but unfortunately they're very expensive, and there's no private monies going in really into golf courses. Golf is starting to die off as a sport as well. All right? And people, yeah, so there's something, how do you build a golf course here? There actually is a full design because it includes this area and then this area on top of the landfill, which you're allowed to have some amenities on, which we're going to talk about in a few minutes. Okay, so that was acquired by the former West Covina Redevelopment Agency. In 2011, redevelopment agencies went away. The state of California said we're no longer going to have these agencies, and so therefore, at the time, the governor eliminated them statewide. So the property at that time was kind of tied up, trying to figure out what was going to be the future of that land. The city argued, well, hey, wait a minute. We think the city should be receiving that land because before the dissolution or redevelopment, the city issued bonds to the tune of $13.5 million that was to help build the golf course that was never built. Those bonds, I mean, the work was done up there because what they did is they would move soil around into certain areas from the Big League Dreams area up on top of the landfill, with the top of the landfill, as well as put it in certain areas to provide for that future golf course development. That was never done. So we, as a city, and you as residents, are paying about $500,000 a year, what's called city's general fund dollars, on a project that never came to fruition. Okay? And so one of the thoughts is that, okay, so if the city has to pay this $500,000 really for another 20 years or so, how do we try and get out of that debt somehow? So the idea is to have a potential development up here. Okay? And so we're coming back to the residents and say, hey, do you guys want to see a development up there? Whether it be a little bit, not at all, or a lot. And so that's what this meeting is going to help focus on, is trying to get your feedback, what you'd like to see up there. Let's see. So I guess we'll go to the next slide. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Is that toxic waste still there?
Yes. Good question. So the toxic waste there is there, and it'll be there in perpetuity. It would cost probably billions upon billions of dollars to try and remove it, and not just remove it is the problem, is finding a place to take it. And I think it'd be more dangerous for the community to remove it than to leave it there. Okay. The other challenge that the environmental agencies have is, if you know anything about landfill design, right now when landfills are built, or even last decade or so, they put what's called a liner system at the bottom of the landfills, which is like thermal plastic, heavy duty stuff to help prevent anything from seeking into the groundwater, right? There's none of that here. This is all designed before that. So the only thing down below that is bedrock. So that's why it's important to have these environmental agencies out there, and they have monitoring wells all around the landfill and on the private properties to make sure that the water, there's no water contamination, that the gases stay within the property. So I think there's been pictures of people going to the Home Depot, you'll see sensors on the floor or on the walls with methane sensors. So they have them in case of an emergency. But that's kind of what the situation is there. Did you have a follow-up?
No, but I hear that water is contaminated.
No, that's not the case. So there's several water agencies out there, and none of the drinking water comes from any of the wells near the landfill. What we want to make sure is that it doesn't become contaminated. So that's why we're close with environmental agencies to make sure that they're on top of that. All right? So yes, there has not been, as far as they've shared with the city or any of the environmental agencies, that there's any contamination. So they are out there monitoring that, and they're out there on a daily basis making sure of that.
There's a lot of wells in my area.
Right. And there's been concern, especially now that we're actually getting some rain, that when rain hits the landfill, gets into the landfill itself, does that cause problems? And so the environmental agencies, when they design a landfill, the idea is they want the water to hit the top of the landfill and come off of it, not to soak into it. So it's all sloped. Okay? And then inside there they have several feet of dirt and then a clay barrier in there as well. And if you have clay in your backyard, it doesn't let water usually go through it. So that's how landfill, what's called the cap, are designed. So at this time, they've told us the caps are fine, but that's part of their study they're doing now to ensure that that's the case. All right, so I want to make sure I speak on their behalf, but that's kind of what they've been telling the city is, hey, we're studying this to make sure everything is okay, but none of our alarms are going off saying there's any concern to the community. But the question is, this is going to be here in perpetuity, a toxic waste landfill. So they need to be able to make sure that these systems are in place in perpetuity to protect the welfare of our community. All right? Yes, Bill?
How much erosion has occurred in the top deck and a property in the last 25 years?
Unfortunately, I don't have the information about erosion, but I can tell you is that DTSC is on top of the Class 1 landfill all the time, as well as Cal Recycle overseeing. And their recommendations are, hey, if there's opportunities, if there's any new development going on up there on the top deck of the Class 3 that the city may wish to do, they would recommend putting more dirt to help ensure that that was the case. All right. So tonight, there's a couple of things we want to talk to you about. This is an area what we call the top deck. So they're going to be referred to that a little bit more this evening. Okay. This is an area that could have potential development to the city as well. So we've talked about, go back one more slide, Karen. This is an area of land that is owned by the city, which could be either retained by the city or sold by the city to a developer, okay, or multiple developers. Okay. The next slide, which is yellow for the top deck, we can't sell that, okay, because it's not our property. It's the BKK landfill, but we have a license agreement to use that land for 99 years. Okay, so we have the ability to put some sort of development up there that will be in place, I guess, for 85 more years or so, because it's been there for probably about 14 years, that agreement. All right, so we're here to talk to you about if there is any development on this site at all. That's the first question. The second question is, as we narrow it down, because as a developer, the property for sale is more valuable than the land on top of the landfill because they can't actually buy that land. Or here's the other complication. You can't build anything really on here. Because remember, this is the top of the landfill. So it's not like they're going to let you drill holes in the top of the landfill to put in foundations for a building. Okay? It's a little bit different than if you're familiar with Industry Hill Sheraton, or the former Industry Hill Sheraton. It's now called Pacific Palms. That used to be a former landfill. Not a toxic waste landfill, a municipal waste landfill. But the hotel is not on top of the landfill itself. It's on bedrock or other land that was adjacent to the landfill. So those are areas that developers find a little bit more enticing to buy or develop. Not saying that they wouldn't want to buy, maybe lease this from the city, which is a possibility as well, which we'll talk about that as well. But the question is, if the city says, developer, maybe you can buy the other portion, but we as a city want amenities on this portion, what would residents like to see up there? If that was one of the solutions. So that's what's going to be the focus of today's meeting, and of the charrette we're going to be doing. Okay, we're having a survey that's asking basic questions kind of globally about what could or could that you as a residents would like to see up there, or if nothing. But then we as a city, we really want input on this yellow section. And I'll tell you why. If we have discussions with a developer that says, hey, if we let you build on that blue and have some impact on our residents, we expect you to build something on the yellow for us in exchange. So we want to have that negotiating ability to say, hey, we've had community meetings. Our residents have said they want X, Y, Z, or perhaps nothing up on that area of the landfill. Yes, sir.
How big is that yellow area?
Pauline is about 80 acres.
Well, the flat area is around 50.
Yeah, so flat portion is 50, but it doesn't include the slopes.
So you could
Total top deck is 50 acres. All right. We're going to help give you, as part of that charrette, some ideas and concepts to help you get through that process. Yes. In our opinion, they're still considered a developer because they can still acquire the land grant. The question was, if a conservancy or a land group came in and wanted to preserve it, that's still an option as well, if they're having interest to do so. That's a good question. Yes, sir.
What happened to the money that was allocated for the golf?
Sure. So the bonds were used for the construction of the preparation of the footprint of the golf course. So there was a design done. So there is a full design of a brand new golf course and construction drawings.
Obviously, it didn't happen, so what happened to that money?
That money was actually used prior to all that for the construction. Part of it was for moving dirt from Big League Dreams onto the landfill to create that footprint for a golf course if it was ever rebuilt. So that money was gone. That was used as part of that development years ago. So we as your new city manager, I've been here for a few years. I've been here almost over 18 years now. God, fast years. But I remember when we were going through that process that there was, all the construction going on and the bonds issued for Big League Dreams. There was bond issues for the golf courses, and the use of the golf course monies was actually helped benefit Big League Dreams in a sense because it moved dirt that was in the way of Big League Dreams to the area that they needed for the golf course. But the benefit of that was it didn't have to move dirt off the site. So we didn't have trucks leaving town with dirt trucks. I mean, there were millions of cubic yards of dirt that were moved. And all that dirt has been put either on the top deck as preparation for the golf course and some of the areas of the canyons up there as well.
So was all the money used?
All $13.5 million was spent back then.
That was taxpayers' money.
It was, it still is. So it's bonded. Yes, sir.
If you were able to achieve a developer from the deck, would the developer be able to get or tag along with your 85-year ground lease?
It would. So it'd be something that we would have to work with the BKK Corporation and the environmental agencies just to make sure that whatever development is on the top deck, that yellow area, that is acceptable to everybody. And what I mean by acceptable to everybody is, and this is a good point, I'm glad you brought that up, is that right now there's only 2 permissible uses up there. A golf course or open space. And that was done when the agreements were done for the building of the Big League Dreams complex. But that doesn't mean you can't change those agreements. You have to go back to the environmental agencies, which we've already had meetings with several of them, and they've all said that a development is a potential up there as long as we're a part of that process and part of the design of that process. All right, because people are concerned, well, if you build something on there, oh my God, the toxic waste is all of a sudden going to spew out, right? They're not going to allow that to happen. We're not going to want that to happen. And I'm sure the residents will be overseeing whatever is done up there to make sure that doesn't happen. Okay, so we want to make sure that, the safety of the community is primary. If there's opportunities for those developments up here, we're going to look and see if we can do that. But we do need to get them to help change some of those agreements as well. All right. With that, are we ready for Jeff? Or Pauline, I'm sorry, we're going to do the survey first. Let me just make sure I got all my notes. Oh, one other thing I want to make sure that folks know. There's a lot of things that you haven't seen up there that still needs to happen. Okay, what's called mitigation measures. All right? When you drive up and down Azusa Avenue and look at the Big League Dreams, a lot of people complain about all the brush there. It looks like weeds, right? We're not allowed to touch that area. That is natural habitat. So there's a sign there that says coastal sage habitat. Okay? And that's a protected area. Okay? So as part of any future development, the city, since we're the property owners, right now are required to do a lot of mitigation measures to increase areas for what's called coastal sage, which is a habitat for a known bird up there called the gnatcatcher, which is an endangered species. All right. Plus, we need to do a habitat area for black walnuts, which is protected as well in our community. Okay. So that's something that part of any development up here or no development is still something that is required to be up there. And on that point, the city is still on the hook for those payment of those obligations. There are what's called, it's a little complicated. There's what's called a Melrose tax up here, which taxes the property owners not outside the perimeter of Big League Dreams, the Heights, or the landfill. They pay taxes into a special district to pay for the well. Yes, sir.
Would it be possible for the city to lease that area to a developer to develop a RV building?
There's a lot of possibilities for something like that. Yes, that would be something you can bring up in your group. So one of the questions, well, Pauline will come up here in a second with the survey. Well, I guess let's get down to general terms real quick. So when you look at the whole site, including the stuff that's for sale, or maybe for sale, and the top deck, there's really a few options. One is you don't do anything up there and leave it alone. All right? However, the city has some concerns over that because think about it. We're still paying $500,000 a year on those golf course bonds that were done 15 years ago that we're still having those obligations. So if we're able to generate some money to offset those costs, that's of interest to us. Okay? But that doesn't mean it has to happen. Okay, I'll make sure that's clear. 2, you can do a development that's consistent on both the blue area that we showed earlier and the yellow area, okay, which is a full development, all right, or you can do some hybrid in between, all right, and that includes the preservation that we heard earlier. So there's a variety of different opportunities here. All right, so one more question in the back.
Does any area of the BKK outside of West Covina into Walnut, or is it all in West Covina?
No, so it all is contained right here, which is also the city property line. Okay. So the city owns the property left, this is Walnut to the right.
Okay, but...
And the BKK Corporation line does not extend over there.
But if I was in Walnut, I would maybe want to be asked my opinion because I'm very close to the BKK.
Sure, so any development has to go through an extensive environmental process regardless of the fact that it's on a landfill. The fact it's on a landfill means it's going to be an even enhanced review. All right, so there's something called the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA. New projects or any projects that has an impact on the environment or potential impact has to go through a full review. All right, so if this was not, let's say this was never a landfill, but just an open piece of land in town, we would have to do CEQA. The fact that it has a landfill and a toxic waste landfill means it's going to be amplified, because it's not going to be just a regular document that normal construction projects would have to go through, but you have to get the approval and the input of all these environmental agencies that normally would not review it. Like, for example, Cal Recycle would never review a CEQA document here in West Covina unless that was a part of it. What's that? Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah, he's saying we got to stay on time or you guys will get everybody at 8:30. All right, so with that, I'm going to turn over to Paulina, who's going to start walking through the survey so we get some data from you. So thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I think I've met all of you, trying to help you guys join. If you want to participate in the poll via your phone and are not joined, please raise your hand and one of us will come help you. If you don't want to participate via phone, we do have hard copies. If you don't have one and want one, also raise your hand and we'll come help you. Okay. Yeah? I don't know if you can help the lady regarding the survey. Okay. Well, she needs to do it too.
But I never got.
Okay, so we're going to get started with the survey. I'll introduce myself. I'm Paulina Morales. I'm with the Community Development Department, and my title is Economic Development Housing Manager. So I get to work on this project. Very exciting. So tonight we're going to get input from you guys, and this is a new way to get it. It's all electronic, and we don't know who's submitting what. We're just getting your responses. So first one, easy question, are you a West Covina resident? So if you are a West Covina resident, put A and then submit that response and we'll get it up here. If you're not a West Covina resident, that's fine. We want you to put 2, just put B and hit submit. We're going to make a couple copies of the hard copy for you guys. So once again, if you're a West Covina resident, put A and then submit and we should get your responses. Okay, Does everyone that wanted to submit via phone submitted? Are you submitting through phone? She might have to leave if she has it in mic.
We still need one more hard copy.
Oh, they're making copies. Person, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. I think we're going to move on to the next question. Yeah, they're making hard copies, so you'll still be able to provide us your input if you're waiting for a hard copy. So the next one, there's a radius map on your table, and it should tell you the distances from the BKK site. So here, how close do you live to the former BKK landfill? And depending on the distance, if you can submit. If you don't have the radius map, I think there's a table, we'll get you guys one. If you're not,
Do you know if there's any more radius maps?
Did everyone get the radius map to look at?
No, we need a map.
Oh, if this table can share the map with you guys, sorry. Oh, they need to submit their responses. Can you submit yours? Yeah. But we don't need the map after this. And then Scott, yes. All right. Okay, we're going to move on to the next question. So the next question is, what do you believe would be the best use of the site for the community? So A is an open space nature preserve with hiking trails, park, recreational facilities, from sports fields to picnic areas, playgrounds, amphitheater, etc. A private development. D, solar farm. Or E, leave as is. And then F, if it's something other than those options, you put F, and then we have forms. If you want to submit an other that's not listed there, we'll have a form that you can fill out. So I think Jeff was going to pass out those forms. Oh, yeah, you can only vote for one. So pick your top one, please. This is for the entire site. What do you think the best use for the site is?
There's that letter F that's other. Yeah, that's right. It's used. A and B. Public or private.
They're making some.
I don't like pushing her.
Is there any more hard copies?
Or you should rank them. That would be better. That would have been a better
Okay. So Jeff has the hard copies, and then if you want to submit other and give us specifics as to what you mean by other, Jeff also has a sheet that you can fill it in. Okay, I think we're going to move on to the next question. Would you support development on the site?
Can you define development?
As Chris mentioned earlier, it could be from a conservancy purchasing the property and leaving it as open reserve to private development. I agree, we're going to narrow it down, don't worry. And part of the charrette is to give us specifics. Okay, next question. So it looks like majority, some kind of development would be supported. Next question, how much development would you support? As Chris mentioned, 100% developing the entire site, 50% or a combination thereof of public and private, or C, no development, leave the site as is. I'm sorry? That's for the entire site.
Wait, you're saying that's for the blue area and yellow area?
Yes.
Let's mix
We'll get into financing in a bit.
That's the one I want. Hopefully you're not fixing it. Yeah.
All right, so it looks like a combination, you guys would be supportive of development of common site. Okay, next question. Would you support selling a portion of the site to a developer for private development if it meant possible revenues for public amenities on the remaining portion of the site? So this is, would you be willing to allow private development on that blue area if it meant we could have public amenities on the yellow?
I can't believe they spent $13 million on moving dirt. Yeah, but I mean, the previous one. Right, but that was over $10 million, and they just moved the dirt. They did the plans and then they moved the dirt.
Okay, so moving on to the next question, number 5. What is more important for you as a community member? For the site to generate revenues or provide public amenities? So what's most important to you is to generate revenues? A. If provide public amenities, B. Or C, a combination? the horse race, which is bad.
He got the mic.
Okay, so it looks like provide public amenities is the top priority for the site. If you had responded to generate revenues, you wanted to know why. So you can still respond if you selected the other option. A, pay for additional public safety officers. B, provide more events programming for the community. C, repair, maintain city infrastructure. Or D, help with the current budget issue. I want your input. Okay, it looks like help with the budget issue. Now, second question is, if you had previously said public amenities, why public amenities? A, provide park and recreational facilities. B, provide open space to nature preserve. Or C, provide a gathering location for the community.
We're going to pass out, for the next question, we're going to pass out a piece of paper. Every table group needs to choose a spokesman or a spokesperson, I'm sorry, and that person will be the speaker when we do the table group thing. We're going to pass out a piece of paper for the next question for you to fill out. It's best if you have the spokesperson do that now so that the table speaks as a one voice.
Is the survey over?
No, the survey's not done. Okay, so it looks like open space nature preserve wins by 83%. Okay, so the next question is the one that Jeff's handing out the pieces of paper, is what are your biggest concerns regarding a private development at the BKK site? So amongst your groups, you're going to discuss and come up with what your concerns are. Once you share them with the group, we're going to put them on the survey, and then you're going to get to vote on those concerns. So if you have questions, raise your hand, but we're going to give you 4 minutes to discuss amongst your group and then share.
Are we supposed to be in unison or we just all?
As many as you want. So the question is, what are your biggest concerns regarding a private development at the BKK site?
In the city. And as we get
2 minutes left, guys.
They could have been a motorcycle.
That would be like the noise.
The noise, the visual light, going with traffic. We had an RV story.
I totally agree. They're not doing anything here. No one can agree on anything. They cannot even rebuild their own stadium because they can't agree on how it's going to.
Possible property tax. Of course, it's more.
1 minute left, guys.
More value now because it's next to an open space.
Going along with that, kind of listening to people how actually solve your problem. Like, even a decade from now, we need its money, but like,
Gallister Park and develop
it's
that
not
and then have this.
a silver bullet that's going to solve it. I know it's so many.
I don't know how many people even use it. Well,
All right, guys, we need you to round it up so we can share.
there's still housing.
All right, time, guys. Jack's gonna go around and hand the microphone to your spokesperson. You can.
Okay.
Your most intimate.
Should I start here? Okay, just.
All right, I've been told to speak directly into the mic. At our table over here, all our concerns were the impact on city residents. Many of us were gun shy after hearing about the loss of $14 million with the golf course. Some of us were concerned about the follow-through with whichever project was chosen. Traffic and quality of life issues are always huge for residents who live anywhere in West Covina, but especially close. Yes. Quality of life, pollution, and this is not just your standard garden variety pollution. This is toxic pollution. So my 92-year-old mom still lives on Azusa Avenue in Cortez, and I remember seeing the guys with hazmat suits out there mopping up. So it's a very real thing. But she did leave, and she is still alive, so I guess that's a good thing. It is a good thing. Anyway, we also talked about control of who will maintain the property when it's in private hands. That's a concern. And some of us were concerned that it will be the development will be successful. And if there is solar, we would like to know if it will benefit the local residents. Thank you.
We did traffic and safety, public health, threats to wildlife that are there, lack of open space in the area, we need more open space, aesthetics of the development, noise, the visual blight that it could be, possible property tax increases or impact to property values.
Number one, we have the unrealistic expectations of building on a landfill. I think that's the foremost issue that, we can come up with all sorts of ideas, developers can have all sorts of ideas, but it's a toxic waste dump. The area around the toxic part has been leached into for a generation or two, and I think that's, when we agree, that's the overriding issue we need to concern. Traffic, it has to be a major concern. Any type of development that's going to cause an increase in vehicles and other things coming in and out is going to just be a disaster for Azusa Avenue. The possibility of overdevelopment and density is always an issue in any type of a new development, especially in the middle of an existing city. The dangers of long-term habitation, the health issues, that again is similar to the first issue, but it's a little bit different because right now the situation is that no long-term habitation can be had on that property. You can't as of now, build something where people are going to live there. And any of the developments that have been talked about, such as hotels, dormitories, even stables for horses, it would be illegal now, and that would have to be dealt with all these different governmental agencies. I think the total is 8 governmental agencies are involved in it now. The environmental impact on the flora and fauna, besides just the couple of endangered species, there's 20, 30 different animal groups that live up there, from birds to snakes to deer to coyotes, and all those, that's their natural habitat, and all sorts of vegetation that protected and otherwise that is there that needs to be protected. And something else is, yes, cities like Walnut have to be part of the discussion and have to be involved in the planning of any development, but a city like Walnut that is just notorious for litigation and stopping development, we also have to consider post-development litigation. Something could be built, and 5 years later, a surrounding community can come in and say, this isn't what they signed off on, and try and stop or close down something that's either under construction or been built.
Yeah, thank you. A lot of these are, we've heard already, but I'll go through them. First is the lack of control over private development, potentially getting locked into one revenue source. What would happen if the entity filed for bankruptcy or the development failed? What would we be left with? The impact on traffic and congestion was a big concern. Aesthetics, what would it look like? And would it ruin the view of the hill over there for the residents and others who live nearby? The health and safety impact was a big one. Also noise, depending on what kind of project it is, what kind of noise impact would that have on residents who are nearby? Possible litigation by potentially responsible parties or other parties who are affected, and impact on wildlife and the natural life that's up there.
Ours might not be new either, but we had public health, the traffic and congestion. We don't have enough open space in the city already. We have too much development. The nearby there and across the city, we already have too many vacant buildings and restaurants and office buildings, etc. Concerned that it would potentially attract additional homeless up in that area, threats to the existing wildlife and vegetation, and impacts on property values nearby.
We're pretty much with the general consensus, everybody, other than I would like to add security. That's also a concern for the surrounding neighbors, just adjacent, if the development was to go through. And also one other thing, unrealistic expectation of a revenue base, anything generating the numbers that are being shown up there.
Okay, we had overdevelopment, not necessarily on the site itself, but citywide, costing the city money, potentially giving tax incentives to the developer, other ways the city can lose money, traffic, health and safety, potential lawsuits, also privacy of the surrounding neighborhoods, losing natural open space, disturbing existing wildlife that live there, and this was mine. I know that there was talk about paying off the debt we have, but in my mind, the private development could equal, two wrongs. So I don't think two wrongs make a right. So just because we have that debt, private development wouldn't necessarily be the correct thing to do.
We said the biggest concerns were public safety, destroying natural habitat and wildlife, something that was unprofitable to West Covina regarding no additional city obligations, stop the building of hotel, racetracks, and other non-necessary developments, and increase in taxes.
Well, a lot of my main points have been said already, but overdevelopment and of course traffic. I just want to emphasize that this is the last great open space left in the San Gabriel Valley, especially in West Covina. So if we could take a toxic past and turn it into something beautiful and positive, we'll definitely benefit.
Our group is concerned about liability, the idea that private developers are going to be concerned more with the bottom line than with the community, that they might bail on us. I want to add just the reiteration of the health and environmental concerns. Thank you. Okay. We're trying to create the list for the survey, but we're going to go to our next phase, which is table group discussion. And some of you that felt like you were kind of on the edges and left out there, the reason is because you need to be at a table with a map to have part of the next discussion. So we have several people back here, I think, that want to participate. If you want to participate, bring your chairs up here. People will let you squeeze in. This is a community event. We're all part of the community, so the community has to work together sometimes. It has to squeeze in sometimes. Sure.
Stuff over there. Bars, blackjack.
Yeah, I think so. I guess we'll go around. You're gonna ask, what are your top 5 desired amenities?
Okay, so there's 8. Okay, you're going to be a little bit at a loss without a map. You can probably still work it and maybe look over somebody's shoulder who has a map.
You don't want any amenities?
Okay.
You want a road?
All right, we're going to finish the survey and then we'll start the table group discussion.
Fire road?
All right, so based on everyone's responses, we came up with the survey. So I'm going to read out loud. Some of them were similar, like traffic, so we didn't listen multiple times. So impact on city residents is A, and you're going to select your top concern. Okay, so just one submittal. B, if your top concern is traffic. C, quality of life. D, hazardous pollution. E, management of development property. F, threats to wildlife, environmental impact. G, lack of open space. H, possible property tax increase or impact on property values. I, unrealistic building on landfill. J, safety, security, and public health. K, aesthetics of development, noise, blight. L, other development density, overdevelopment and density. Litigation from surrounding cities, M, lack of control of private developer, N, bankruptcy, failure of development, O, locked into one revenue source, P, gun shy after loss of 14 million with golf course, Q, cost of city money, R, privacy, S, no additional city obligation, T, and the last one was, stop the building of hotel, racetracks, and other non-essential developments, maintain it natural. So if you could take your top concern.
Those that do pass the test.
I had to move forward. I'm sorry, I just had my eyes checked.
Lack of open spaces, G. For those that are filling it out hard copy, you can put in the letter and we'll know what you're responding to, or you can type it out, whichever one you prefer.
That's kind of a vague. What's the impact?
No, that's fine. Impacts to residents, city residents, A, traffic, B, quality of life, C, hazardous pollution, D, management of development, property, E, oh, that went away, threats to wildlife, environment impact, F, lack of open space, G, possible property tax increase or impacts on property values, H, unrealistic building on landfill I, safety, security, and public health J, aesthetics of development, noise, blight K, overdevelopment or high density L, litigation from surrounding cities M, lack of control over private developer N, bankruptcy, failure of development O, locked into one revenue source P, gun shy after loss of 14 million with golf course Q, cost of city money R, privacy S, no additional city obligation T, and then no non-necessary development U. I think lack of open space is winning. I don't know if the other ones have a chance of catching up.
Yeah, made me feel bad.
Is everyone submitting, or do you guys want me to read it again? All right, we're going to switch it up. Anyone else need to submit before we move on? Okay, so the next question is, what do you think are the benefits of private investment development in the community? So A is increased property values, which I know you guys just said could be a concern. Removal of vacant and or blighted area. C, increased amenities to the community. D, increased revenues to the city. So this could be sales tax, transit, occupancy tax, permit fees, etc. Or E, I don't believe there are any benefits. Or F, other. Oh, Karen. Oh, sorry, she's fixing it.
Yeah. Because there's nothing on the screen.
Sorry about that.
What number are we on?
7.
7.
You have to choose.
Yeah.
But she's still filling the box.
Pick the top. Years ago. There you go. All of the above.
No, sorry, she's changing it. She's changing it. Fix it. Okay. There we go.
Wow, that was bad.
Oh, Karen? We're going to come back to this question.
Real quick before the group discussion, there was a question to me on one of the tables I think is important for all of you to hear. And that is, over the last several months, there's been discussions about a possible development at the landfill already with a horse racetrack, horse stables and that. Have people heard about that? That project's dead. Okay? So, we want to let you know, in addition, the developer we work on is called the Simpoli Group. We have an exclusive negotiating agreement with them at that time. That has now since expired. So that allows other opportunities for developers to come in or other uses. However, I will say the Simpoli Group does have an interest in the site and is actually present this evening seeking input from the residents as well. But we want to make sure that that was clear to everybody that the horse track concept that we have been seeing, that project's not moving forward. That's another reason we're going through these activities. So we do want to hear back from the folks what they would like to see up there. All right, so with that, I'll turn over to them so we get the projects at the tables going.
The question is up, so if you want to submit while Jeff gives you the next steps.
Yeah, keep on submitting if you're doing that. So we're going to go to the table group discussion, which you have the map in front of you. You have, we're looking for help on what the community's interest is on the top 5 desired amenities. You have the sheets in front of you, the challenges that you see there, and the possible financing mechanisms. So we're looking for a collaborative discussion at the table groups. And what we're going to do is we're going to let you discuss it for about 20 minutes. Then when we're done, we're going to have each one of the table group spokesmen speak for 3 minutes on what they found. So it'd be just like we did last time. Everyone will go around and provide their input.
I think that was more important.
Okay, to get you kind of started on the workshop, the charrette component, we're going to go on to the next question. Karen? So the next question is, what type of public amenities would you be interested in seeing on the top deck? Top deck only.
So 8. We're doing our top 5 desired amenities, our top 5 challenges, or some challenges if possible. I see ices, barrels as possible. Oh, that's yes. So you can vote for that.
Okay, so entertainment A, sports B, hiking trails, nature preserve C, park D, community farm and garden E, fitness center F, and other G. And then you guys can start your discussions with your table groups on what the amenities are that you're looking for, what are the potential challenges, and I think the potential financial inclusions for these options.
It is
So 5 amenities, challenges,
If you have questions, just look for one of us. We can come and try to answer those.
Does anybody want any recreation? Like bike trail, well, if you prefer open, you're not going to really want to go.
Forget to submit your responses. It's still active.
Let's refocus. Desired amenities. What do we got? Open space. I feel like that's a pretty agreed upon open space.
They just set them Yes, I do.
Because right now we're looking for $500,000 for our bond.
Open space, top line, these are new.
What he said was that the money to spend, you take care of the, I can't say you want to collect the monitoring. No, they have to collect all that. Like I started to say, they're required by environmental regulations to collect the crap, gas, and they have to make that.
On the overhead, we do have some possible thoughts from the staff has come up with. These aren't things you have to use, they're just ideas. This is a brainstorming session.
They're not.
An art project. Just an open space, nobody goes there. You want to continue fenced off. Fenced off. Essentially, you know, I haven't. That's big. That's what we have. My question is, how do you define capital? How many hours per day?
You can't just in a group. So yeah, it's educational spaces. I'll sign up for that one. Yeah. No, I played that one too. Oh really? Yeah. It's amazing.
What they've done though, they changed so they don't do it at trade check. They go on a site. They now go live away on property, so they don't have to do this. Yeah.
This site lost control.
Any other amendment?
Oh, we're supposed to say the chicken on. Well, that's possible finance.
Well, the challenges are financial. The maintenance and they already said it. They don't have any. But you're going to put a solar farm has to be Well, that's the problem. They want coastal states, coastal stations that fire. It's not fire retardant. It's kindling. In an emergency, use well, you have to have an agreement, and you have to make sure that agreement benefits the city, and then know that there's only a 5-year lifetime. You're gonna have to replace it. You're gonna have to again, the company could, but it would have to get any benefits. How much?
Okay, agreement that is, what else am I writing? An agreement that is populate the list of the
last category. How do you
5 more minutes and then we're going to stop and go around. So we're trying to wrap it up in the next 5 minutes.
There is some toxic stuff in there. Because they were doing, like, when they were excavating the pipes, there wasn't supposed to be any toxins there, and they were finding toxic stuff. So the stuff just got go around.
So is there any other
We're looking for all 30 sections to be filled out. The communities and challenges and the possible
10 years oh, they didn't even do an actuarial study. Oh, it's still the city of LA. Hemorrhages.
This gate. This is the gate. Alright, so low impact recreation. Alright, let's move on to challenge. What challenge is may kill your airplane. Like if somebody goes off and there's a bunch of people there, that you're getting a way out.
In your best grouchy voice. Grouchy. Yeah, that's I usually speak at city council, and Tony Wu says I'm grouchy. You're honest. That seems pretty relaxed. That's correct. You're right. They don't have
but other than
any other major challenges? Electricity, digital need avenue, the students add cost. Also added cost of financing and so that's why I was talking about selling electricity and make it self-sustainable. Any more challenges? Nope. All right, financing. Do we know what that
Okay, 1 minute, 1 more minute.
Is this video or still? Video.
You're gonna post it to your.
Forever.
That's it. Can't get rid of it. You list it on your resume. Okay, the time is up, so put your pencils down and drink. We're gonna start with this. We're gonna start with this table group. So if you could, everyone, quiet down, thank you.
We always like to be first, so nobody, we always be ourselves. Here are our top 5 desired amenities. Hiking trails, yay. A nature preserve and open space. Horse trails, my personal choice. And to connect with Gulfster Park, just make a bigger area, so I know Scouts come up and use Gulfster Park sometimes, and I hear that they want more. And one more desired amenity would be enterprise, and here's our enterprise spokesperson.
Out of the things being proposed are things that we have to pay for from our taxes or whatever. So I think we should encourage enterprise into our city. Now, how do you encourage enterprise? Make it easy for them to come in, however you do it. Okay, it can be lowering regulations or just allowing, say, give them a chance just to start, and maybe don't tax them for a year. Whatever it takes. If you want these things paid for, you have to have enterprise.
All right, so now we're on to challenges. No money, policing of the area, upkeep and maintenance, traffic with only one ingress egress, and unforeseen obstacles. Possible financing, solar farm would bring in some money. Fee per use if it was like hiking trail, something like that. Parking fees, many of us have gone places hiking and whatnot and pay for parking, with higher fees for non-residents. Oh, and you want to talk about solar farm?
Yeah, I'd like to just talk about solar. Solar would be an ideal thing to do, and I'm not talking about building like a mega farm. Mega farms are very large, okay? You could probably subdivide the solar energy, and you can use it like you did in some of the pictures that were up here, where they have like gardening and different things that benefit the local residents. And I'm also I would encourage you to take a look at your residents that live in the local area. Don't you think it would be a good idea for them to share some of that power? Like to power their house or to offset some of their expenses? That's what I'm all about, helping the people. Streetlights.
And one more, if an enterprise like the Conservancy, Nature Conservancy uses it, then they pay. So that's a way to get money.
Okay, so our top 5 desired amenities were the nature preserve, hiking trails, open space, and a solar farm. The challenges we identified were maintenance, security, policing, fire prevention, and potential homeless encampments. Possible financing, we looked at, or we discussed, a lease agreement that would be beneficial to the city and it results in generated revenue to basically be self-sustaining for whatever we decide to do that's not revenue producing.
Well, we can only come up with 3 desired amenities that we could all agree on. Open space, passive use of solar panels, and low impact recreation. Without building any big structures, just have, like the title indicates, low impact recreational services. For challenges, the toxicity may kill you. There's always a possibility, as happened a couple of decades ago, the need for evacuation. Disturbance of the cap, and one of the environmental reports that was issued during the progress of the discussions on the Singapore proposal, there was one of the agencies that indicate potential problems, if not existing problems, with the cap and the cost of upkeep. For possible financing is selling electricity from solar panels and finding conservancy groups and outside companies and groups who would be interested in putting in these types of developments. And I need to say something in response to this gentleman here and what he said. The absolute last thing we ever want to do is remove the regulations that are keeping the residents of that area, the entire city, safe. We can't go back on EPA regulations, California Department of Toxic Substance regulations. Those are necessary for the lives of our lives, our children's lives, our grandchildren's lives, and we can't jeopardize that.
Mine was the table of geniuses. They chose the idiot as the spokesman. Here goes. Number 1, natural wildlife habitat open space. 2, solar power and storage battery technology. 2B is water storage tanks, reservoirs. 3, community gardens and/or county arboretum. 7, this was mine. Toxic landfill geological research station. This is a PhD research project. Challenges, finances, that's a big one. Being short-sighted, a lack of vision. Regulatory approvals. Convenient access. Possible financing, Prop 68, Measure A, Edison grant, grants state, federal, county, maybe private, and land trusts and conservancies. I made it. If anybody wants to add something, here's the microphone.
So we came up with our desired amenities, of course, trails and open space, solar that benefits residents, ideally around the parking lot, soccer fields, and paintball arena, probably possibly. Challenges, upkeep, maintenance, wildlife intrusion, homelessness, employees to maintain how many we would need for the possible financing, grant funding, and hopefully partnering with outside agencies and community groups, environmental community groups.
We'll be sort of repetitious again. Solar, great opportunity up there. Walking trails, hiking trails connect to Gulfster. I'd like to see some shade sails and benches, so make the hiking more attractive, and definitely leave it alone for the most part. The challenges are access. There's just one entrance and exit up there. Traffic, potential subsidence of the landfill if you put anything of any weight up there. Definitely planting on the landfill is a challenge. Funding in litigation. Possible financing, grants, both government and private. Conservancy groups, state, county, the propositions and measures that we've already voted on for parks, revenue from solar.
We pretty much duplicated everybody and the genius table. But we are really pushing for solar and the open trails and a potential rehabilitate that area to prior to what the golf course damage, the mess that was brought on by them. Challenges, not use city revenue, support from the community, similar to what happened in Walnut, where Walnut Mount Sac went ahead with the solar and didn't get the Mount Sac residents, the Walnut residents in support with them, so that went down. And then of course traffic. And last, possible financing, everybody stated that. Possible Cal Poly Mount Sac relationship, build something there. Maybe the Elon Musk and the Gates family come in or something like that.
Okay, our top 5 amenities were trails, natural open space, recreation, passive nature center, and I added a last one, viewing decks. Cost challenges will be who will pay for it, the cost, health and safety, and maintenance. And possible financing, conservation groups, possibly even donating the land in kind and not having to deal with maintenance. Grants, one grant I know of is Prop 68, the bond that we just passed to the state. Monies that I think they're in the hundreds of millions of dollars that we can get to pay for most of this. Measure A funding, that's from the county, and solar farm revenue.
Most of our items have been said many times. We have a couple of new ones here, and they're not in. We were not in total agreement on these, and maybe we got a consensus. But one was to have a recreational vehicle RV storage facility up there. There's a real need for it around. Get them off the streets, and people who want them can't even find them. You'd have to find a private enterprise to do that. And that might lead to a traffic problem. The other one was storage lockers up there on a grand scale. It would be a traffic problem also, and you would have to get a contractor to do that.
They have them down RV in the tent. The question is, how much need is there? How many get in and out?
All right, so while Karen inputs all of the responses that you guys provided in regards to the amenities that you want to see, we're going to ask you a couple more survey questions. So, you kind of answered it in your groups, but in the survey we can provide us the answer. How do you propose the city pay for the construction operation of a new public amenity? A, general fund dollars. B, taxing district similar to a community financial district or an enhanced infrastructure financial district. So these are taxes that are placed within a district to help offset the cost for either infrastructure or for police and fire services. C, public-private partnerships similar to our Big League Dreams sports park. It's owned by the city, operated by a public entity, and it helps offset the cost of the operations. Or D, private development, or private funds, sorry.
Good answer.
That could be a public-private partnership as well, yeah.
Some of them, half of it is. General fund would be 100%. private, it could be any range.
Okay.
Maybe up to 50. So they don't. So it could be like 45, 75. It doesn't-
Fun? What do you think the greatest obstacle to developing the top deck site? This is only that yellow area. What do you think the biggest challenge is or obstacle? A, development limitations. B, regulatory agency approval, like Environmental Protection Agency or ETSC and CalRecycle. C, environmental concerns. D, public financing, or E, other. All right, I think environmental concerns is the biggest obstacle. So next question is, what is the greatest asset or benefit of the top deck site? A, that it's the development potential. B, leave it open space. C, the elevation or the views that you can get up there. I don't know how many of you have been up there, but you can see downtown LA. D, the location, where it's located in the city and in the region. Or E, other.
You should have just answered all the questions from the beginning. You should have answered all the questions first.
Okay, I think open space wins. All right, so then the last question
And they
is,
find ballots. That's called ballot harvest. Yeah.
what are your most desired amenities
like
for the
organ
top deck? So this is what you guys came up in your groups. And I'll read them because there's a lot, so it's small. A, hiking trails, nature preserve. B, an enterprise. C, horse trails. D, solar farm, solar greenhouse. E, connect with Gallister Park. F, natural wildlife. G, water storage tank. Community educational facility H. Cross-country track or gymnasium I. Observatory viewing decks J. Community gardens, arboretums, farmland K. Low impact recreation L. Recycling facility M. Geological research station N. Safety O. Soccer field paintball P. Shade sails, park benches or park Q. Above ground greenhouse R. Open space S. RV storage facility T. Storage lockers U. And rehabilitate to what it was before the golf course V. So I know you guys a lot with open space, so that is S. Okay. So hiking trails, nature preserve A. Enterprise B. Horse trails C. Solar farm, solar greenhouse D. Connect with Gallister Park E. Natural wildlife F. Water storage tank G. Community educational facility H. Cross-country track or gymnasium or gym I. Observatory or viewing decks J. Community garden, arboretums or farmland K. Low impact recreation L. Recycling facility M. Geological research station N. Safety O. Soccer field or paintball P. Shades, sails and benches or park Q. Above ground greenhouse R. Open space S. RV storage facility T. Storage lockers U. And to rehabilitate what it was before the proposed golf course V. I think that's it. So I think you guys overall support a solar farm or solar greenhouse up on the top deck.
Okay.
Did I get that wrong?
We are, this is the conclusion of this exercise we went through. We really appreciate your cooperation in this. I want to give a shout out to these two ladies because they did all the electronic stuff. I would have had a chalkboard. So they did a great job with that. We know the questions weren't perfect. We were trying to get some responses, and I think we got some responses. Again, it's not perfect because surveys are never perfect. But we do really appreciate you all coming out tonight. We're going to stick around. If you have questions, come talk to us afterwards. And so Chris is here, I'm here, Aline is here, so if you have questions.
And if you could provide your hard copy surveys to me, or I'll come around if you want to leave them at the table. We also have a website on our the westcovina.org where it's going to have updates on the site. It's westcovina.org, and it's going to be the BKK development site. So if you guys want to keep updated.
When do we get the opportunity to give our input on the blue? Because the yellow is such a small piece, it's very specific. When do we get to have the community give input on the blue?
Schedule that at this point.
Shout out to everybody that came.
If you want to